Access to medical care is becoming more and more of an issue here in Guam, and it doesn't even matter if you have the ability to pay. It's getting harder to see a doctor, to get an appointment, or to get the specialty care that you need. So I want to show you a growing solution to a growing problem. They're going to go out of their way to help find you a solution. And they've been growing their clinical services. Aside from this place looking and feeling homely, like this is their waiting area. Like, I don't think that people really understand that they do full clinical services here. Like, this is one of their clinical rooms. Look how nice it is. You get your vision exam here. So do you need to see an OBGYN, get family medicine done, internal medicine done? This is all stuff that's done here at the Total Guam Foundation. And just to tell you again, this place is not for profit. This is the psychologist's office. Yes, they have a psychology department. They also do psychiatry. It's an entire mental health department that they have here on top of all the other clinical services that they provide. If you need medical care, if you're having problems getting a doctor, getting an appointment, call the Todu Guam Foundation at 649-TODU or 649-8638. You can visit them on the first floor of the Sunny Plaza building that's next to Sunny Outlet and behind the old Bank of Hawaii building in Tamuning. Former CNMI Governor Ralph Torres, oh shoot, I completely forgot to make sure my camera was on standby. I have to, hold on, you're going to be able to see the complete background and then my virtual camera. You know, I'm not the best of producers, and I often forget to do some things. So anyway, former CNMI Governor Ralph Torres, telling the voters of the CNMI that they were just allegations. They were just attacks on me, and it already is laughable, right? But to try to gaslight the voters and tell them, I'm going to revive the economy that I crashed, we got to talk about that. But that's going to be in the third part of our show. The second part of our show, I hope to get Dr. Vince Akimoto on the air to talk about childcare. He's upset with Senator Chris Duenas, with the senator's handling of the current special session, where senators are entertaining a bill by Governor Lulian Guro to provide funding for three different things. One of them is childcare. So if I'm not able to get a hold of him, I'll at least read you his opinion that he submitted to us this morning. And then the first part of our show, we're going to be talking to Tony Ada, and I'm not sure if EJ Calvo is going to join him. It would be nice if he joins him on this phone call about their election victory and, more importantly, their path to November. This would be our first conversation with either of the gubernatorial candidates. I did reach out to Senator Therese Terlahi's campaign manager, Mary Kenga, or MJ Kenga, last night. I woke her up, and I know that she had they have to be exhausted. All these campaigns have to be exhausted, right? Just catching up on sleep. And this morning I did reach out to, I did message Senator Therese Terlahi. I haven't received a response yet, but I'm sure they'll be responding at some point. So at some point, I'm almost certain that we'll have an interview with Senator Therese Terlahi about her victory and her path forward to the general election. So we'll bring you these three subjects, and we'll start on standby. I'm kind of we don't have political commercials, so I'm kind of forgetting what the commercial lineup is. Oh, there we go. We will have to start these conversations on the other side of the commercial break. Stick with us.
Good Morning Show with Troy Torres is brought to you by 76 Circle K Guam.
Welcome back to the show. It is now 7:08 a.m. on Monday, August 3, 2026. Give me a second. I have to let me see. I just got a message from EJ Calvo. So I know from Senator Ada earlier this morning that he and Mr. Calvo were waving. I don't know where they were waving. We'll ask them. Um, and they said that 7 a.m. would be a good time for them because they'll be done with their wave. I got a message from. Oh, okay. They're ready for the call. Got it. Thank you. Now, do I call your phone or his? Let me just wait to see whether Mr. Calvo says to call his phone or to call Senator Ada's phone. While we're waiting for that, Tony Ada and EJ Calvo won their party's nomination to be the candidate for governor and lieutenant governor at the November 3 general election. By the way, if you're not registered to vote, one of the things that I came across following the whole rally remarks scandal is that a whole bunch of people, they were fired up to vote. Okay, Senator Ada says to call his. They were fired up to vote, but they didn't register to vote. And so I think there's going to be a whole bunch of people registering to vote. You can vote. You can register online at gec.guam.gov.
Hello.
Good morning, Senator. This is Troy, and you're on live with Kandit.
Hey, good morning, Troy. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. How are you, Senator?
I'm doing well. EJ, how are you doing?
I'm good. Half a day, Troy. Good morning.
This is a very clear phone call. Thank you. So, where were you guys? Good morning, Mr. Calvo. Where were you guys waving this morning?
We were down at Chief Kapua, Route 1 and 4.
Okay, and how was the response?
The response was excellent. Such a good wave. We just wanted to go out early this morning and, thank the people for their support and vote in the primary election. And it starts now. Now we're starting towards the general election. So
I remember that you guys were waving a lot in the primary. Is that one of your strategies continuing forward in the general? You'll be doing the two of you or the two of you with your wives, these waves in the morning at different places?
I don't know. We haven't had our wives with us yet, but I'm sure we're going to get them out with us. Tony and I like to cruise around together and talk, and he picked me up this morning, and we said, rain or shine, we're going to wave and thank people for their support, and that's what we did this morning.
Your wives are much prettier than you two are, so you guys should get your wives out there.
We'll try to convince them.
Actually, they're going to come out and wave with us. We'll get them out there.
You know what? First of all, congratulations. Congratulations on your nomination. Do you feel that you both worked hard, or actually, let me rephrase the question. What in the primary election do you think you need to shore up? Something that you might have taken for granted that you thought, we could have done that better?
Troy, I think in all aspects of campaigning, right? When you look at, do we fall short on what business issues or medical issues or cost of living issues? We take it one step at a time, and we go back to the drawing board. And absolutely, you're right. We do have to find out what we were lacking in this primary election and how can we make it better going towards the general. So, as you know, both Speaker Blas and Dr. Mary Okada, they were awesome opponents to us. I don't know how I can explain it, but they were just on the up and up. And I don't think, Troy, you would ever see again, but I hope you do, is the togetherness of the Republican Party in this primary election.
Are you fielding phone calls from Republicans who voted for Blas Okada saying, we are with you, Ada Calvo, we are joining your campaign, we are voting for you? Are you getting those phone calls?
Yeah, actually, Troy, I think the answer is yes, but we've been fielding phone calls from all over. And I think there's just a lot of positivity and good feedback regarding our campaign and our message. And obviously, maybe there were alliances in the past that now are no longer there, no longer available. So, yeah, we've been in the last 24 hours, we've been hearing from a lot of people.
I'm told that that there are people who campaigned for, especially for the Josh and Tina team, and also for San Augustine, San Nicolas, and of course from Blas Okada, who are reaching out to your campaign surrogates, asking to be part of the campaign. But let me, which has to be good news for you guys, but let me ask a tough question here. That's something that I need to ask is there any meeting in the works for any sort of high level deal to be made? Because I know that this is something that's done after every primary election.
Yeah, you know how it is, Troy, right? We're just on Monday. Election was just on Saturday. A lot of the candidates and all their all their generals, right? They're all just recuperating from this past Saturday. So naturally, I'm sure that these phone calls will eventually happen, and reaching out to one another, especially on our side, right? The Blas Okada team. We my own my relationship with Speaker Blas. We always get together with things and on things. So, we are going to get together and we're going to, how is it that we can work towards victory in October with their team voted into ours and, being a part of our team as well. And, I'm sure those talks will also happen with the other candidate teams to move forward.
Are you going to have a meeting with either Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio or their campaign management in order to strike some deal?
Well, nothing has been talked about with the the Tenorio Munya Barnes team. Like I said, this is just right after the primary, so still those talks, whether we have any conversations with them or not, will have to be decided upon. If they reach out or anything like that.
I think, Troy, you're asking more on a high level leadership level. I mean, we did speak to the other candidates even starting the night of the election, and or maybe that was the morning, the early morning after the election, and we just exchanged well wishes.
Okay.
But since then, it's been unofficial. We have so many friends. Guam's such a small place, and our friends and from all the different camps have been reaching out and asking how they can help. And that, I think, is very open in terms of getting help. Obviously, there's a lot of work that go into these campaigns, and we appreciate the help. So I think we're trying to figure out how to best create that merger and kind of adjust our organizational structure. And we'll do that. But nothing at a high level that you're asking about.
But what if, Mr. Adam, Mr. Calvo, what if one of them says, in order to get our endorsement or to get our support, it will call our village leaders, etc., to go over to you guys, but you got to give them jobs, or you got to make sure that these guys stay in their current jobs, etc., etc. How would you respond to that?
Well, yeah, as you know, Troy, with all campaigns, you don't promise anything, right? A lot of our folks that came on board on our team, we turned around and told them, thank you for volunteering. We don't promise anything to anyone. We continue to work hard.
Okay.
Right. Because that's one thing that we have to look for. When you run for an election and you start promising the world, and then you don't move forward, then what happens? You just gotta take one step at a time, and we see at the finish line what happens, and that's what we've been doing these past 10 months, 12 months, and that's what we're going to be doing and moving forward.
I think on the same note, though, we do have to put ourselves in a position to identify talent and recruit based on merit, those that can help us manage and help us bring some positivity to the government at some point. And I think that's also important. So yeah, I think I agree with it. There's no promises, but we definitely have to start thinking ahead.
Why do you think, Senator Ada, Mr. Calvo, why do you think the voters chose you? And also, why do you think the voters chose Therese Terlaki?
Well, with EJ and I believe that we're both EJ and I. We've been out in the community, both in government and in the private sector. We have different experiences on both sides. And we since day one we started putting our plan out, and I think that when they saw the Guam First agenda and see what we've been doing and how we get our message out, I think that we were able to resonate to a lot of the people with their concerns. And it's not to say that Speaker Blas and Dr. Mary Okada didn't do likewise, but I think what they have done and what we have done, people were resonating towards what we've been doing over the past year.
What are those concerns? You said, they're in tune with or that you guys are in tune with their concerns. What are those concerns?
I think number one, it was really looking at just making a living on Guam, and that incorporates rising costs of everything, as well as just improving the economy and getting more opportunities, and for whether you're a small business owner or a career person that's hoping to have a long career on Guam, or a young person starting their career.
Okay.
We've heard so much about those concerns that we share. And in our planning, it seems like a lot of what we talk about comes back to that.
Okay.
The education system, it leads to your career. And, having a safe and clean environment, it contributes to our economy and the tourism industry. So
Okay.
it's all intertwined, and that's where our planning has been and our focus.
What do you think are the reasons voters chose Therese Terlahi?
Oh,
I think Troy, the Democrat Party, when they came out with three teams, and I think the differences between each gubernatorial team on their side, perhaps a lot of them, saw stark contrast between Lieutenant Governor Tenorio and Ranking Member Munya Barnes, and Senator Terlahi and Senator Sabina Paris. So whatever that contrast was between the two teams, we're not sure. So I think that's something that members of the Democrat Party may want to get, like, say, hey, how is it that Therese was able to garner more votes than Lieutenant Governor? And I think that's interesting.
I think the message, Troy, is people are looking for change, and that's what we've heard throughout our campaign.
Okay, change.
And,
all right.
Yeah, and so I think we could leave it at that. But in our focus, not running against the incumbent administration, we were focused on bringing change to the island and improving on some of the weaknesses we see. So I think we're all aligned on that topic.
So why then should so the playing field's been leveled then by the voters on the issues, right? Why then should voters choose Ada Calvo over Terlahi Perez to be the better change agents and the team that will address the affordability and cost of living issues?
Well, when you look at the Ada Calvo team, like I said, Troy, is that we have experience both in government and private sector. We got the pulse of the community in the private sector. EJ, as you know, has been really out there in the private sector. All his experience, plus his experience at Gita, and he knows these things. And when we turn around and when we had the tourism forum, we lost about 10,000 jobs, almost $1 billion in revenue throughout, both direct and indirect tourism related fields, and almost $100 million in government taxation.
Can I tell Senator, that those numbers that you just rolled out, the one that hurt my heart was the 10,000 jobs, and it hurt my heart because that's people who either no longer can afford their way of life here in Guam, who are still here and are struggling greatly, or most of them I think have left the island. And when you said that, it really hurt my heart. Like, to not that you hurt my heart, but the fact. I just wanted to
No, it's a significant number, Troy, and that's something that we can get back, and even more than just recover to pre-pandemic health of that industry. But you remember that we were on our way. I mean, at the end of the Calvo administration, and and even in the beginning of this administration, the industry was still growing, and there were a lot of great ideas on the table, and then it all came to a halt, and we needed to jumpstart that again, and it didn't quite recover. And so we need to save that industry and get back to that mentality of we are going to get back in a growth mode. And so recovering jobs versus even expanding beyond that, and thinking bigger. And we're excited about that. But Troy, can I go back and answer why I think the Atacalvo team's the right team?
Yes, this is your interview, please.
Oh man, because Tony Ada recruited me, and I'd say first and foremost, when he did that, it's now been over a year since I got a phone call that changed my life, and he set the vision from day one, hard work, integrity, and bringing hope back to the island, and he inspired me in that conversation, and then immediately we got to work on planning, and so not only does that help when you're to come out early in a campaign. We've been working on this, and there was no, I looked in his eye, and there is no question that he was intent on what he's going to bring as governor of Guam and what he would like our team to do. And in fact, that when I asked him about his platform, his answer to me was, it's going to be our platform, and we're going to build this together. And we got to work on it since last year, and it's been evolving. And we've been talking to so many. First thing you have to know is that you don't know everything. You have to make sure that you have your the industry specialists and experts and experienced people in the community help you devise your plan. So planning, knowing how to execute the plan, knowing how to recruit the right people and put them in a position for success for the government of Guam and for the island in general. This is what we've been focused on for quite a long time. And it's not about comparison, but it seems like there was some uncertainty about who else is going to run. We weren't focused on that at all. It's just about, let's just focus on what we have, what we can control.
Yeah, our plan.
Can I tell you
Yes.
guys?
Thank you, Troy.
Can I just can you be witness to my thoughts here for a second? Yesterday morning on our morning show, I got a little emotional talking about how the voters chose you two and Therese Terlahi and Sabina Perez because it for the first time in a long time, it felt like there's hope. Like I feel as a voter, I feel very comfortable with either one of your teams winning. I just, and so Millie Luhana Python, she answered right now, or she commented right now. 8 years of the collapse and corruption of Guam, now move forward in hope and pray these politicians will stick to their platforms for better days on Guam. Our family left Guam after 25 years in GPA and 20 years in education. Talk to us about hope.
Troy, and I think that's where we go back right to the 10,000, that 10,000 number, right? Where, the tourism numbers impacted a lot of families directly and indirectly. Do you remember that time when United picked up almost 400 families and moved them off island? The reason why EJ and I have hope is because we want our children and our grandchildren. I text you that, I'm sorry I got distracted because, I was with my grandson.
Yeah.
And, you said, hey, he's way more important than I am, right? And that's the hope that we want, is for our children and our grandchildren to come back. But most especially, man, those who have left the island because they were in despair, that, they didn't see what was, any future here. And that's not what we want to project. We want to project that there is a future here on Guam, and we want them. It's not that we need them. We want them to come back home. We want them to make their future here. We want them to grow here. And that's why EJ and I, we're both working hard to ensure that, our plans that we put forward, that we're going to execute those plans and bring that hope back to our island, bring our people back home, and bring our future here.
Mr. Calvo, did you want to add to that?
Oh man, I've said it before. I kind of operate a lot in all the businesses and and promotions, activities, events that I've done. I have a chip on my shoulder when it comes to comparing Guam to the world, to the outside world. And when I hear things about what's so great about other places, I've always been about trying to bring Guam up in terms of the level that we have. And no place is perfect, but I think it's just that inspiration and motivation that I have to see Guam on par with anywhere in the world as much as possible. And not only what you see on Guam, but opportunity for our people, for the people of Guam. That's what I've been about, is setting the stage. And I believe in our people, and I think there's so much opportunity and so much talent here that we can shine, and all that will mean is a better quality of life and better experience for everyone. And that's what really has motivated me. And then Tony Atta, like I said, gave me a call and opened up this opportunity to help him. And yeah, once I agreed to do that, it's been awesome, because I just feel like more and more I've been able to share my message of inspiration that I've tried in whatever project I've worked on, but now on a bigger platform, on a bigger stage, and potentially in a role that can really make things happen for Guam. So that's kind of my point of view.
I'm not going to ask you guys for your full strategy or anything like that, and maybe it's just too early to expect that there would be a full strategy developed, right? We're just 2 days out from the election, or just yesterday you guys won, or were declared the victors, right?
Yeah.
And so
we're just gonna wave every morning.
Well, let me just ask you then. When's the next get together for Ada Calvo? When's the next fundraiser for Ada Calvo? And how can voters reach out to you to ask you questions or to participate in your campaign?
I would say, Troy, our social media platforms have been well managed. They've grown organically. I think that's the best way to stay in tune with what's going on, because there's constant content being uploaded. Some very informative, some just inspirational, and you can also communicate with us through our social media platforms. If not, our website, adacalvo.com, where I believe we also have our email address there. So
yeah, and that we'll be also posting our our events that will be upcoming.
Okay.
We still do our island cleanup. We also post our our get-togethers and fundraisers and things like that also on our social media. So absolutely, they can always go onto our social media and look up what the next event will be happening for the Ada Calvo team.
Thank you both so much for your time. I want to I'm gonna reach out. I'm gonna take you up on your offer, Mr. Calvo, before the primary election. We talked about having that interview with the two of you in studio.
Yeah, let's sit down.
Yes. Yeah, I'll reach out to Jadine Tuncap, right?
Paris.
Oh, Jadine Paris, pardon me. Yes, Jadine Paris. Yes.
Yeah.
I'll reach out to her
Yeah.
For the scheduling. I want to thank you both so much. Congratulations, and best of luck to you both in the general election.
Thank you, Troy.
Thanks, Troy.
God bless you both. Drive safely.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
That was a great interview with them. You can hear their excitement. You also get, so to some of the questions that I asked, you could tell that they did not want to offend any of the teams. So you heard that maybe a couple of their answers were not as detailed as I wanted them to be. But I know how politics works. It's especially at this stage, you don't want to offend somebody, right? You're trying to get as many votes as possible. But I think the most important thing to me was their commitment to not transact with the people's resources in order to get more votes. At least that was what their commitment was. We're going to get, I got a message from Senator Therese Terlahi that she is willing to interview, and so we're going to call her now.
Hello?
Hi, good morning, Senator Terlahi. This is Troy, and you're live with us on Kandit.
Oh, good morning, Troy. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, ma'am. Congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you so much. I am so very humbled by the voters in this election. And very excited about it too. But lots of hard work ahead.
Were you surprised? I watched Nick Delgado's coverage, and I couldn't help but think that both you and actually Senator Paris said she was surprised or she was shocked. Were you surprised by your victory?
I guess I was a little surprised that it was so early, clear so early. I guess they just did 2 batches, and then the third we were done. It was, I don't know. I guess I just expected it to be a very much more drawn out, much closer process, maybe more contested. But so yes, I was just very happy that it was super clear, and I was really very humbled. I am still very humbled. That I think is just, I so many people work so very hard, and so I feel so good for them, that their hard work and their faith in us and their hope for Guam, that they that continues. So, but I was also very impressed. And on election day, uh, I wish there were more voters, of course, but I'm very, very grateful to those who actually did go vote and who, we told them, you know, you want change, we have to vote for change. And so they actually did go and vote. And so I'm very, very humbled by that. And that gives me hope too. And it's these, it's really the people of Guam who have, from the very beginning, they've given us encouragement. We've listened to their stories or their struggles, and it's really motivated us, kept us motivated the entire time. And then their hard work, many of them, every step of the way, it just keeps us also energized and motivated. And so I was just so happy for them that night, for all of those who worked hard, all of those who went to vote, and with great hope, right? So
I'm glad you brought up the terms change and hope. I just got off the phone with Tony Ada and EJ Calvo, and I was explaining to them on the theme of change, of hope, that yesterday morning during my morning show, I got a little emotional talking about how when I saw what the results were on both sides, I thought, well, I can, for the first time in a long time, I can breathe better. I can, as a citizen, just me personally, I felt good about the direction of Guam and how the voters have chosen. Uh, and let me ask you, because you brought up change, right? The Attic Calvo team, when I asked them why they thought that they won and why they thought that you won, they said that obviously the voters want change. You want to talk about that as well? Do you believe that same thing?
I think they must have. Yes, I do. And because that was what we strongly campaigned on, and that is really what we heard the most. I'll say, if you talk to voters, that's what they say. They want change. Yes. So, yeah, I would say that. That's it. Yes.
Aside from the general theme of change, what is the specific top issue of voters, or what are the specific top issues that led to your election, that led to your nomination?
Well, I think cost of living is a very huge issue for everyone. That it's just the cost of their basic needs have really just grown so much that they are having a very hard time. So it's that struggle, and they're looking for some relief. And they want to trust that the government is focused on bringing them that relief, bringing that the government resources, using the government resources fairly across the board, so that the relief is for all and not just for some. And I if I had to sum it up in just a few words, that would be it for me. That would be it for me based on what I here and how the voters talk to me. So, of course, that's what we think we can deliver as well, and that's our focus, and that's our life's work as well. Is that we do believe that the resources of the government belong to the people of Guam. They should be focused to help the people of Guam, and that this help should be fair. It should be we should reduce costs for the people as much as possible, and across the board, wherever we can find that through government efficiencies, through more accountability, through improving systems as have been recommended for decades, and that we actually make those changes.
Senator Sirlaki, why should voters trust that you and Senator Perez are the better team to deliver on a commitment of a government that they can trust to address the affordability and cost of living issues?
Because I think if you look at our records, you will see that is exactly what we have done. We have, you know, um, either been the main sponsor or one of the main supporters of so many of the direct uh, cost impact either relief, such as the removing the gas tax at the pumps, uh, support giving the energy credits in the times of need, um, actually appropriating money for food for those in need and for shelter, and and increasing the capacities of our shelters, making sure that uh, you know we put in place the accountability systems, many of them for above step hires, for non-merit limited term hires, and uh, in different agencies, we've required them to put things online so that we can track whether violations are really being prosecuted or being, ignored. And we've tried to increase, the efficiencies, especially in the collections at rev and tax, and in so many different ways. That's our record. We have spent our working lives doing that, and so I would. That is why I think the people of Guam can trust us that is exactly what we are going to continue to do, but on a greater scale and with the resources of the entire government of Guam.
Senator, I'm sure, or well, let me rephrase. Have you been receiving phone calls from supporters of other teams ever since your victory, of them wanting to come over to your campaign or curious about what your campaign is about, and maybe they want to join? What has the response been since your victory?
Yes, so many uh, just people saying they're totally going to support us going forward in the general. Yes, so I think from many different camps, and I want to thank those supporters as well. They did great work for their teams, and they all worked hard on election day. It was very nice that the different camps were very helpful to each other, and you could just tell the people of Guam, they care for Guam and they care for each other. And so elections, I hope, and their Godzu is not really what's going to dictate that about them.
Okay.
That's, I think, the most people for the most part, the people of Guam. So I would say, for the most part, yes, we're getting a lot of support and from different camps, and that they are going to support us in the general. So that's, of course, encouraging. We are welcoming of everyone, their professionalism and their talent to make Guam better. Of course, we want to make sure that that's the goal always, and that's how we're going to move forward.
I need to ask you the same question that I asked of Ada Calvo, and it is, what if one of the candidates from the other side or their surrogates asks to get together to cut some deal, and part of it is, you'll get our support if you hire this person or retain this person, or it's, those things that we know happen after every primary election.
You know, Troy, I might be, this is my take on it, right? It's, I don't see that supporters are like that anymore. Like that they're going to be told where to go, or that they're going to be told, that I made a deal for some people and that, but the rest of you, yeah, you so go support this person. I don't think and that that's how they operate anymore. I think they are all pretty able to, look and decide what does this team want for the people of Guam. Do we see some common ground for what we want for the people of ground? Just for themselves personally. So that's what I think. And so if I guess if I don't. Um, I'm sure everyone wants to take care of their people. But then we all want to take care of the people of Guam. And again, that's based on because they are the people of Guam, not necessarily because they're from one camp or another. But so I think the, that these supporters are going to be able to decide for themselves to support as they see fit and to support the values that are most in line with their own and to support the team that seems most able to deliver on those values and on the needs for the people of Guam.
Senator, how can those supporters of the other teams who are interested in supporting you now, how can they get a hold of your campaign with their questions or with their interests? Actually, how can any member of the public get a hold of your campaign to volunteer or to ask questions of you guys?
Oh, that's a great question. So we have a email, terlahiparis2026@gmail.com.
Okay.
We also have a phone number,
Okay.
which is just 1 second here. It is 484 BOTA, BOTA, or 2682. Yeah, 484 2682 or 484 BOTA.
I love it. Does that phone number accept text messages or just it's
Yes.
just it does as well? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and please call us if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, if you want to share something that you think has not been addressed in any of the campaigns so far. We are very open to that because this campaign has been built on the struggles of everyday people and trying to address those. And so we are very willing to listen and to ensure that there is a way to address all the struggles that the people of Guam are having.
I want to read you two comments that came in and just get your reaction to these comments. One is from Millie Luhana Faison. She says, 8 years of the collapse and corruption of Guam. Now move forward in hope and pray these politicians will stick to their platforms for better days on Guam. Our family left Guam after 25 years in GPA and 20 years in education. And the second comment is from Rosette Ramos Pacetis, who says, I've lived on Guam more than half my life. Now I spend more time in the Philippines because of the deplorable conditions we have in our beautiful island. I dread coming back to Guam the last 3 years, but my friends and family are there too, so I've been back and forth, but never excited to drive around or through our roads because it looks like a war zone because of burnt, abandoned vehicles on the roadside that are not just an eyesore but road hazard. Our beautiful island has been ignored by the current administration. Time for a change! Exclamation.
Some of the messages we get are actually sad, like with a tone of sadness, where sadness with hope, right? Sadness about what they've done. Yeah, some of them left Guam. Some of them have really contemplated leaving. But so since the election night, they've been sending messages, but that they now have hope, and again, that just continues to encourage us. And I don't want to. I wouldn't do this if I thought I'm going to mislead anyone. So I'm very, very, I guess realistic about that, and I want to encourage hope because I do believe that we will bring the results that we have promised to bring.
Senator Sherlahi, what's next for your campaign? I don't know if you've had time to gather with your campaign team to to figure the road from here to the general election. So I guess let me just ask, uh, is there a next gathering or a next fundraiser or a next wave that you have?
We'll be announcing those soon,
Okay.
Troy, and yes, and hopefully to increase our network to get that message out. But appreciate your inquiry. We will be announcing those soon, and we are regrouping, and we are trying to make this bigger and better going for the general. We know this is going to be a very tough race, but we are excited about it. Actually, excited to move forward on that. Can I just say one more time how
Yes.
grateful I am to the people of Guam? I'm just so grateful and humbled by what they have done. I really am, and that is exactly what we hoped for. We hoped that the people would take it in their hands and do what they believe is good for Guam. So I'm so very glad for them, and I share their hope. I share their excitement, and I want to thank all of those who worked so very hard because we could not have succeeded without their hard work.
Can I tell you, Senator, when I woke up, I actually woke up because I'm old. I woke up in the middle of the night to pee, and it was I think it was like 1:30 in the morning. It was right before the final results came in, and I saw from all the text messages that were coming in, that you and Sabina Perez and Tony Ada and EJ Calvo were very likely going to prevail in the election, and I felt good too, Senator. I felt hope. And I want to let you know that.
Thank you. Well, that's great. I love it. Thank you, Troy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I don't know what to say anymore. It's I'm part of it is, of course, I've never run in a gubernatorial campaign. Neither has Senator Perez, but we are just so we're going to take this one day at a time with hopefully, yes, regroup with a strategy that's going to get us and keep us all the way through the general election, and welcome all the voters, welcome all the supporters, and really keep that message of hope going strong because of what we can deliver in the end. And so to all the people of Guam, thank you. Thank you for voting. Thank you for believing that your vote will make a difference, that your vote will bring a change. And thank you for believing in the change that we can bring. I'm very, very humbled. We are both very, very humbled.
God bless you, Senator Sherlahi. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. God bless you too.
You have a great day. Bye.
Thanks.
All right, we spoke with both gubernatorial candidates and plus Lieutenant Governor candidate EJ Calvo this morning. What a blessing to be able to speak with both teams. One of them is going to be the governor of Guam come the early morning hours of November 4. Very likely we'll know that answer. On the other side of the commercial break, I've been getting some messages. I'm so asked to be able to respond. Okay, so on the other side of the commercial break, we're going to have Dr. Vince Akimoto on the line, and then after him, we're going to have Senator Chris Duenas on the line to talk about this issue of childcare. And please bear with me. I'm trying to I have to reprogram my mind because I had to take the political commercials out of the lineup, and so I'm trying to remember what the commercial lineup is. Oh, there we go. On the other side of this short commercial break, we'll have Dr. Vince Akimoto on the line. Stick with us. That's what I'm going to eat today. I'm going to have myself some Domino's pizza today. That stuff looked good. Joining us on the phone right now is Dr. Vince Akimoto. Prim,
Good morning.
we're both from Mauricio. Good morning. You have some choice words for the legislature and for Senator Chris Duenas because of how things are shaping up or how the special session has been going regarding childcare subsidy. Talk to us about what's going on.
And personally, I mean, this is such an important conversation and such an important platform. I mean, I know a lot of people are waking up this Monday morning wondering what Kandit has to say, and so I'm really glad that you're hitting the ground running. Because again, let's face it, this was a very impactful election. Many things were accomplished that really sent a clear message, I think, to all politicians that the people of Guam are watching, they're hurting, and their voices must be heard. You know, the thing about childcare, I'm just going to say, the discussion is about whether it's a right or a privilege, and whether this needs to stay in the home, or whether or not there needs to be an involvement of government, and particularly the government of Guam. Up until this point, the government of Guam has made the decision that this is a federal problem, that Donald Trump is supposed to be funding your babysitter or your early child learning. And that's, I think, an issue that needs to be continued to be debated throughout this election, because you have two very different perspectives. You have the Democrats represented now by Therese Terlai and Sabina Perez, who are more than likely going to side with the grassroots and the block grant families and the people who are struggling to survive. And they have now been told that if you're on welfare programs such as food stamps and subsidized housing, you need to work. They've been told now that you're going to lose any of these benefits if able-bodied people are not working in your household. And unless that changed overnight, that's the federal mandate, and there's a lot more to come. I think the federal government under Donald Trump is going to take a lot more away from the centralized government and put the responsibilities now on state governments like our government of Guam. And so I think our senators represented by Therese Terlai and Chris Duenas over at Ways and Means have crafted a record $1.4 billion budget that doesn't fund childcare, doesn't fund any government of Guam dedicated monies towards helping the poor people of Guam.
You said Therese Terlahi. I don't think she was involved with she's not in the Republican majorities. I don't think she was involved with the crafting of that budget.
Well, she's in the legislature, so I'm not going to give her a break. She's also been formerly in charge of health and welfare.
So you're talking about all 15 senators being...
I'm talking about the whole entire government of Guam.
Okay, got it.
Because the governor of Guam didn't do it either. Lulian Guerrero sent down a budget to the legislature that didn't fund childcare.
Okay.
And so therefore, that's why the families were there the last couple days, last week prior to the election, letting them know that they were funded last. They had to beg for money. They had to beg for money with the airport. They had to beg for money with all the big bad businesses that are trying to get subsidies to paint their buildings. I mean, they've put the block grant families, the poor working families of Guam, in the back burner. I mean, right. They're getting run over by the short bus. This is where the rubber meets the road. Why do you need to participate in politics on Guam? It's because when you're not looking, the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Mr. Chris Duenas, is lying to you. He's telling you that he loves you, that he want to kiss your baby, and that he's going to help you take care of your families. But in his mind, he's saying that's your responsibility. If you're poor and making babies, it's your job to go ahead and figure out how you're going to find childcare. And by the way, you got to go to work because you're getting welfare. And it's a complex conversation that they never had. They never have this conversation. They avoid it. They pass the buck. And I think for the next couple of months, the general election is still coming. This was just the primary. The next election is going to decide the future of Guam. We're going to either decide on a Republican majority that unless Tony Atta and E.J. Calva have suddenly switched religions, they're going to continue to put the responsibility for child care on the working families of Guam, and they are not going to fund childcare. Which again,
I told in my last conversation with Senator Duenas, though, on the air, he did say that all 15 senators are committed to the $7.6 million appropriation.
That's not a commitment. That is really. I mean, that's like giving people methamphetamines. You're just stimulating them for the moment and lying to them, because if you look at the bigger budget, it doesn't fund it for the rest of the year, and it's basically making up for the difference where Donald Trump didn't spend any money. They're still relying on the federal government to pay for little babies on Guam getting childcare, and I'm talking about, these are working families. They've got a lot of kids, and so when they get a new baby coming in from GMH, it's I mean, I don't know how they're doing it, and I know in the past all the families came together, moms helped, grandmas helped, aunties helped. Unfortunately, with the breakdown of our family, we're seeing that a lot of families, that don't happen. A lot of these working families are one day away from being homeless, and I don't think it's okay for the legislature to lie about a $7.6 million one-time cash infusion at the end of the budget. Right? This was not budgeted. This is something where they're saying, "Oh, look, we found some money. Let me help these poor families because it's the right thing to do." Well, if it's the right thing to do, then put it at the top of the budget. Don't let it run out, and don't let these people beg.
So what you're saying is the legislature did not fund this same type of need or subsidy for fiscal year 2027.
They did not fund this type of activity for the government of Guam as much as they're funding the 22% pay increase that they've given to non-essential employees that don't do anything. They've prioritized Dwayne Kanata's special projects coordinator salary up at Adelup. All these other special project coordinators who sit around with shiny shoes, they are guaranteed payment. They don't have to worry about their next paycheck. They don't have to worry about a legislative appropriation. They're getting paid. While these sleaze buckets in government get paid on the dot, you got poor families begging for money. I mean, what's the difference between that and standing on the side of the road with your kids saying, "Can you please give me $25 or something?" This is Guam's new generation of begging. And Chris Duenas is trying to take credit for it because he threw them a bone. That's not right, man. That's cruel. That's really cruel.
We're going to be following the issue this week. I know the legislature goes back into session, I think, tomorrow. There are a total of 3 different appropriation types in this bill. One is the BAVI funding, the other is the airport bailout, and of course, the most important one is the child care. So I promise you, Prim, Kandit will be covering this now that our election coverage has come to a crawl.
You guys were so important. We really appreciate you, and thanks, Troy. I know this is hard work. So again, we're watching Kandit because you're shining the light, man.
Thanks, Prim.
Good job.
God
Bye-bye.
bless you. You have a good day. Bye. All right, that was Dr. Vince Akimoto. He's been an advocate on this childcare issue for the past couple of weeks. We're going to call Senator Chris Duenas because he wants to respond to Dr. Akimoto.
Hello.
Hi, Senator Duenas. This is Troy, and you're on live with us on Kandit.
Oh, thank you, Troy. Half a day to the Kandit family. Glad to be with you this morning.
Thank you. We just had Dr. Vince Akimoto on the line, and he had some choice words for you and the whole legislature and the government of Guam about the prioritization of child care funding. And I raised him. I said, Senator, the last time Senator Chris Duenas was on the line with us, he said that all 15 senators actually are committed to the $7.6 million appropriation. And his criticism of that is, number one, why wait until the end of the year to do this if it was such a priority? And and the second part of his criticism is you guys did not prioritize this same funding for fiscal year 2027. Can you talk to us about these concerns?
Sure. Thank you, Troy. And I know that Vince Akimoto pays very close attention to all of the activities in government. So I'm a little surprised he kind of missed this one. So a couple of months ago, we had an oversight hearing for the airport as well as GBB. You covered that very well. And we had the fiscal officer, Lester Carlson, down there, who proudly proclaimed that the governor has transferred $5 million to public health and had ordered Ed Byrne to subsidize childcare for a subsidy that they did not originally include in their programs. Now, there was 2 reasons for that. One was there was some pause with the childcare funding block grant coming out of Washington, D.C. And the second part was the issue that they extended the benefits, and so they needed an appropriation. So we paid close attention to that, and we continued forward. And then the governor, shortly after, while we were in our budget hearing, sent down a bill, as we talked about last week, that had 3 appropriations in it. One, of course, was for the current recovery effort for Typhoon Bobby. Sandwiched in between that was an original $11.4 million subsidy for childcare block grant recipients. And the third one, of course, still pending, is the airport, which we believe has ballooned now to $24 to $26 million request. So in all of this, first of all, we diligently took the governor's bill after we passed our budget and went into session, and we found lots of problems with Bobby. I think you followed that very closely. It was a moving target. And, it was almost like, I'll see you 3 million and raise you 2, we'll make it 5. I mean, you saw that. It was clear that it wasn't a very coherent bill when it came down. So then we finished that and we started with childcare. And right off the bat, the director comes in and says, I don't need 11.4 anymore. I just need 7 point something. I think it's 7.6. And then in that discussion, as we proved last week, Troy, that they haven't even finished the governor's $5 million that she set for this with all of the money, that cash that the government has. And they haven't even really completely paid June yet for childcare subsidy. So I've said this time and time again, and I know Vince has followed me on this. This is not an appropriation issue. This is an execution issue. This is a responsibility of the executive branch of government to carry forward on the appropriations that the legislature and the cash that the governor has to be able to provide for these programs. Now, going forward, we're going to continue tomorrow. The governor's office sent down an amendment because Speaker Frank Blas kind of showed how the language even that they originally sent down was erroneous. It had words like solely for this, solely for that, and some other things. So we've adjusted it now to make sure that it will continue to fund this program. And yes, there remains, from what I understand, 15 very staunch supporters to pass that portion of the bill. But we're also calling on the governor to please release the $1.8 million to public health that you saw Director Byrne talk about, that he still has in his coffers, to continue the process for June. And then this subsidy, Troy, as we showed once again on the show last week, is for the last 3 months of the fiscal year for a program which they extended, which the governor did not provide for an appropriation in 2027. We didn't even know about this until Lester Carlson came down and made that pronouncement during the oversight hearing. So we're fully committed to it. I have to take a little bit of an issue with this, and I don't know why Vince is really it seems a little personal, because he started on the radio with Ray on Thursday. I don't know how some of the publications allowed for a personal attack in his ad that the opinion that he wrote, which really was a diatribe all over the place, accusing me of not taxing wholesalers, banks, and other businesses, which has never been on the books for a long time. And it was kind of like out of space. And then the other one was, why haven't I cut 5,000 employees from the government of Guam in my budget? And Troy, you know that while we do believe there are non-essential employees in this government and that we could use that money for other purposes, that's just not how it works. You cannot propose a budget.
It's not going to be 5,000 non-essential employees. Yeah.
Yes, and he's consistently said that there's 400 or 500.
There are not even 5,000 employees in the line agencies that are under the governor's direct control.
That's correct. You would basically shut down the entire government in order to do that. And so I think his real pet peeve is the hospital with 300 or 400 or 500 employees that he says are non-essential. And even at that, Troy, you know that once if you were able to, if you had the executive branch to relieve the unclassified individuals that are brought in by the proper government process. If you were now then going to go and start working on classified employees, they have employment rights. It's a contract that the government, whoever is the executive at that point and the administrators of the hospital, they enter into a contract with these employees. And you cannot just wipe them off the slate. You have to offer them opportunities within the government to possibly lateral transfer to other operations where they have like jobs available. And then also you have to do a process. You know this, Troy, because you went through it before. You watched it at least. We did it under the Camacho administration, where you have to do a notification. There's bumping rights in the government.
Yeah.
It's a very tedious process where you can't just wipe out 500 or 600 employees. And I think Vince knows that. So, like I said, I take a little bit of an issue. It seems a little personal, and I can tell you that it's not personal for me, because that appropriation absolutely will pass in this budget as we get forward on it tomorrow. On this proposal from the governor, we'll need to complete the airport's request and then vote for the bill as a whole. But I just want to let folks know that are listening that this is all 15 of us sitting down diligently trying to get through this proposal from the governor that has a lot of difficulty in it. And we will pass it, I'm sure, probably by tomorrow, or maybe by Wednesday at least. And the governor still has a bank full of money to be able to take care of childcare. And we still have to talk about contemplating it for fiscal year 27, because then it wasn't a request. So we would have to do that in a supplemental budget.
So then there is no current local subsidy for the daycare issue in fiscal 27 yet.
There wasn't under request. And once again, in fairness to all 15 senators, not being partisan, not trying to pick on anyone, there's a big gubernatorial race coming up now that includes our members. There's a big senatorial race coming up. There's an AG race eventually. There's a Congress race. Not picking on anybody. The fact is that this is something that will move forward and was not included in the 27 budget and will need to be contemplated going forward. And so it wasn't on anybody's radar until the governor made the announcement that she transferred $5 million. We didn't even know the reason from the beginning, and it all became clear, very clear, as you showed those presentations that I made with you last week on the floor, that this was all an evolution that nobody was aware of, and that it was a subsidy to this program, that it did deal with some of the shortfalls in terms of bridge financing or funding. But aside from that, all the $22 million has been received from the federal government, and this subsidy was never on the radar until the governor brought it up through her transfer authority on $5 million, and now the $7.6 million being needed to finish the fiscal year. And I can assure the people of Guam, with my vote, and I believe 14 others, that will pass with flying colors.
First of all, congratulations on your nomination to be on the Republican slate in the general election. I think you came in number 2, right?
Number 3, Troy. We're very close up there on the top and all through. And I'm so happy for all of the, my running mates on the Republican side that have advanced. And thank you for those who didn't. They all ran good races and tried their best, and we hope they stay involved, stay engaged. I'm sure we can use their services at some point in the future. They all had great platforms. And so I want to thank the people of Guam once again. Thank you for this opportunity to personally do that, for your confidence in me and being in the top 3 on the Republican side. And I'm going to continue to fight going forward for a responsible budget, for a budget that, yes, does identify the true needs of our people. Once again, Vince was accusing me of a $1.4 billion budget that was bad, in contrast to the governor's request of basically $1.44 billion. And we're tracking an $88 million surplus. So I'm trying to manage that, Troy, to make sure that we truly focus in on the priorities. And I know that a new governor as well will focus on those priorities and ensure that an $88 million surplus will go to the true needs of our people. And we can only appropriate at the legislature, but we can't control how it's spent. And that's why we're trying to make sure that changes in November going forward.
Can you help me to dispel something, Senator? It's something that has always bothered me since my time in government. The Chamber
Please.
of Commerce likes to spew this line about, how more than 90% of the budget is personnel costs, but that's not true at all. About 60-some% of the budget is personnel costs. The second greatest chunk of money is contracts. Isn't that true?
There are contracts within the government agencies. I think the real issue, Troy, and we could go over this agency by agency, it varies, but it's actually within the agency when you look at the staffing pattern versus their operations.
Yeah.
And so really that comes down to what an agency. I'll give you a classic of when I was at Youth Affairs, and thank God the budget's gotten so much better there. When I was there, I barely had over $3.5 million, for care and custody of 2 full facilities, 24/7. And it's ballooned now to about almost close to 11 million, which is great. I mean, it's needed. But what I'm saying is that even during that time, right? My budget basically was about as $3.5 million. I was fortunate if I had about $300,000, about $300,000 to $400,000 for operations. Now I did have contracts because I had federal funding under the juvenile justice block grants as well. And they were very generous. And so I did contracts for staff psychologists. I was the first to bring in a staff psychologist to actually help our kids. The care and custody areas in terms of social workers. So I was able to augment there. So those are contracts. And then, of course, we were able to do things like buy vehicles and make improvements to the facilities under contract. But if you actually looked at my general fund appropriation, it was about a 90-10 split.
And statistics, you can always manipulate the explanation of the data when you use statistics, right? That's kind of what the chamber is talking about. But on the overall picture of the budget, contracts take up a chunk of the budget, and where does that money go? To the private sector. But also, the money that we pay to government of Guam employees also goes to the private sector, because this is their personal income that's being spread about to 12,000 people in the middle class, lower to upper middle class, who are spending that money where? In the private sector.
I completely agree with that, Troy. And if I can, look, they have to continue to, to refine their message to speak to what they're trying to talk about. Now, for me, at least in my conversations, because I am on both sides in terms of listening, and also, I've got a good ear to the private sector as well to understand how that dance has to really work, right? But you're absolutely right. This money does circulate in the economy that flows through the government, no question about it. And I believe that people are compensated properly in the government. In some areas, we need to do more, like accountants and different things that we've missed that are critical to our services, right? I also believe, there is some streamlining and some efficiency that can be brought in to really change that cost structure. But I think more than anything else, and I hope that we're both on the same page here, is what the current beef is, I think, with a lot of the private sector and our people is, it's a lot of resources, but we don't see the improvements.
Oh yeah.
I know that you worked.
Without question.
Yeah, I know that you worked with us. When we were doing things like the HMAT revision of the hospital, where it was a complete. It was internal. We didn't spend money on it. It was internal. Governor Calvo ordered it with Benita Maglonia and others in the cabinet to go in and do a deep dive and find out opportunities for the hospital, like outpatient healthcare and more Medicaid money and things like that. Those were the plans that we put forward. And so the bottom line is that it's even that time, I know that there was a talk about, hey, would we ever contemplate a 0.5 increase in the BPT if it funded a hospital? Mm-hmm. If it funded critical areas where you couldn't touch that money otherwise, and it was tied to debt service, where you couldn't touch it even if you wanted to, because the fact is that, it's kind of like the BPT can't go below 3%, because they would call our bonds on the market, because we committed that we will always have a 3% BPT, and debt service is off the top on our budget, right? So we talked about those things, and I think those are the kind of things that in the future, our people, if they're going to say, yes, I'm going to pay more taxes, want to say, I want to see it. Show me the progress. Show me a hospital. Show me better schools. Show me more police officers. Show me, more fire trucks and things like that. Of course, that's our responsibility, anyways. But the fact is that the government gets into a position where it's financially trying to do its best. It proves that it's streamlined. It proves that, that's why I started performance-based budgeting. It proves that, yes, we need this money and we need more employees to do this service, right? And I hope we do that government-wide next fiscal year, whomever takes the chair, right? But the bottom line is that I think that the beef right now really is not necessarily completely on the issue of the BPT and taxes, but more about what are we delivering to our people for this money? And that if we're going to do this, can we see more investments in making sure that our island is clean? Can we see more investments to making sure that we really have a hospital that takes care of our people? Can we see more investments in saying that, the schools and the targeted education that we need to provide is done and the delivery is there, other than, what people believe that they see is the government general fund has grown by close to $600 million and the average person doesn't feel it.
I couldn't agree more. Senator, he talked about next year. I was looking at the results in the primary election, and my prognostication, if I were to make a prediction, right, I would say that the Republicans are going to have a 9-6 or even a 10-5 majority in the next legislature. That's what I think is going to happen. Let's say you are the chairman on Ways and Means or the speaker of the legislature next year, right? Do you think you'll be able to get work done under, first scenario, a Governor Tony Atta, second scenario, a Governor Therese Terlahi?
I believe that, once again, I believe that the change that the people spoke to was this. I have to caution, because some people, and I know you know this, Troy, some people always say, if we just work together, if we just get along, there's a lot to be said for that. But the reason why the legislature and the late, great Bob Klitsky always talked about the tierras, how they work against each other to make sure you get the best processes. Working together doesn't mean you just acquiesce. It means that you sit down and you have a reason for why you're doing what you're doing. You reason it out and even walk away from the table, Troy, still having differences. But the solution you came up with was something that was reasonable, that a governor said, I need to do this and I need your help, legislature. This is why I want to do this. And we have real budget hearings where it's performance-based budgeting we're talking about. And also, Governor, are you going to execute on this plan? And are you going to live within a discipline and just not run down to the legislature and say, give me more money. If you don't appropriate this, play the political game instead of the real game of governing, right? To me, I believe absolutely that the next administration that comes in, and that if I were at the helm of leadership of the legislature, working with my colleagues, getting their buy-in as well, both across the aisle as well, to say, look, let's change the way we're doing things here. Let's make sure that what we're doing is we're communicating. And when we have our differences, it's okay. We're going to exchange words. It's okay. We're going to hurt each other's feelings. But if we do that, we got to be able to get past that afterwards, not take it personal, and sit down and say, let's fix this. And so that's my commitment. And I believe absolutely, these campaigns are going to have to run, that they are going to do this, that they're going to be workable people, that they have their ear to the ground and they understand what needs to be done, and that they're not going to treat the legislature as though, it's some sort of which branch is tougher, which branch can control that branch more than anything else, as to saying, how am I going to work with them? We're going to have our differences. We're going to argue about the hospital. We're going to argue about police officers. We're going to argue about how much money is for fire. We're going to argue how much is there for agriculture. But in the end, we're both going to have to walk away from the table saying, did we do our best with what we got to get the people the services they deserve and their money is worth for their taxpayer dollars? I believe that the change that was spoken about in this last election said, that's what I want you to do, and you better do it.
Do you believe that you will be able to accomplish these goals under either a Governor Atta or a Governor Terlahi?
I believe so. I mean, I believe that if we're not all cognizant, because this was tectonic, Troy. Let's not Let's not gloss over that.
Hmm.
This was not an expected outcome.
This was a clear message from fed up voters. Yeah.
So the bottom line is that I would be I know this is kind of I would be gobsmacked. I'm going to use that term.
Okay.
If the next legislature that comes in and the next governor and lieutenant governor, whichever of the teams prevail, don't understand exactly what the voters told them. And I know that this general is going to be much different, Troy. I think some people just sat it out, maybe through fear, maybe apathy or whatever else. But I think now that they see an opportunity that their vote may be cast in a situation whereby it's a clean slate. I think that we might see a different level of participation.
I agree. I think there's going to be very high voter turnout in the general election. Yeah.
And let everything go where it is. I put myself out there. I mean, I'm not afraid to lose an election, Troy. I've worked in the private sector for 17 years of my life before being in government, and I'll happily go back. But I will not stop fighting for what I know that I'm doing is right. Although we're gonna argue about whether or not the funding is available, and I'm not gonna sit there in a legislature where people are grandstanding by saying that they want $300 million worth of appropriations in a budget that they know there's only $27 million worth. I think that's disingenuous to the people, and they should stop that. And that's why I stopped it. I know I took a lot of political heat for that, but why did you take away all those amendments and stop talking about them? I said, because this is Hunger Games. You do not put, 60 amendments in the miscellaneous appropriations, knowing that it's worth $300 million, chasing $27 million. All you're trying to do is run out there and tell everybody that I got funding for this. It's those crazy people on the other side that didn't do this. No, that's not true. You didn't do your job because you didn't go and deappropriate like Vince is talking about from somewhere else and put true dollars to it. What you do is you created an environment where you're trying to tell people that you're trying to help them. But really what you're doing is just trying to pass it off and say it's in the budget. Let the governor figure it out. I also won't do that to any governor because I know how hard that is. I know how hard it is to sit there when somebody's attacking me, attacking the administration and saying, why didn't you do this when you know that you made it impossible? So the bottom line is that also has got to go away. And so that's what I'll offer the people. Just straightforward. This is who I am. Talk to me about the issues and I'll tell you. And I'm not trying to not have kids have child or, be out of childcare. And I'm not trying to take things away from working families. And I'll fight to the end when somebody comes after me personally on these things, because that's who I am.
Lindsay Adams Bennett, who is a childcare provider, commented, DPHSS was aware and chose not to advocate for childcare centers. You can't just hope for federal childcare funds. If DPHSS reached out to federal counterparts, I'd like to see the receipts.
Well, that's one of the things that on the campaign trail, on Saturday, I had a couple public health people come up to me and say, Senator, this couple of $1 million for the federal money to match Medicaid, it's 100 and something. I said, that's fine. Let's talk about this. I understand that. But do you realize you have a $1.404 billion budget right now, right? Any governor in their right mind, even if for some reason it didn't make the final cut, would say, hey, listen, I'm going to transfer that over there and I'm going to make sure we secure these programs. And then I'm going to get an additional appropriation from the legislature. If you go in right now and look at the transfer, and I'm leading up to this to say this, I don't know what kind of conversations have been happening. Maybe those child care centers that are in good standing, the federal government's going to say, no problem. The money's flowing. But if you're Minnesota, where there's indictments going down now, coming after sitting Congress people and others that have enriched themselves with federal dollars, they're going to say no. But on Guam, I think this is one program that we've administered well. And that the federal government would probably say, no problem. We need our congressmen to get on this right away. What's going on? Why is Guam being punished if they are going forward when they can account for those dollars? Now, we can't account for everything, Troy, but I believe we can account for that. And I think Lindsay and her team can say, absolutely. We've done our part. We put our invoices in properly. We know our kids qualify for this. We're not lying. We can show that they qualify for this. We can show that they show up every day, and we have them in our daycare centers. Those 5 centers that were down there told me straight up, they're completely accountable. In fact, they're wondering why they're delayed in payments because they submit their paperwork on time. It's 100% correct. So that's not an appropriation issue. That's an operational issue. So absolutely, I think that we would be probably maybe a poster child for administering those funds well. I don't know who's been asking. Teresa Ariola said on the floor, she said, the key person for this program was at a conference. And we asked, why are they at a conference? Oh, to advocate for Guam, because to tell the story of Guam, we're really good at it. Maybe that person came back this week and we can have them in the legislature to say, we got good news from the federal block grant that Guam is a star and we're going to get a lot of money. I don't know. But that is absolutely right. What you're saying, advocate at the federal level to prove that your programs are operating properly and get that money. Just like going back to the hospital once again. Medicaid said to us, you don't have the per bed rate inpatient, but if you have an outpatient clinic and people who would be released from the hospital that came back for follow-up treatment, you could get the full coverage. That's how you can make revenue. Have we done it? I don't know.
Well, I think we know the reason why that hasn't happened, Senator. We can have a whole other conversation about this, is because doctors who are interested in that work have advocated over the years to take those services, which are money makers for GMH, out of GMH because they did not like the competition. And
so here we go. You know what I mean? Let's listen to everybody, right? Let's listen to the totality of the medical community. Vince, let's talk about that. Because that's what the Z-Wing was supposed to be. That 1/3 portion left of the Z-Wing, that whole thing was supposed to be raised, and there was supposed to emerge from the ashes a outpatient clinic
to include dialysis. I understand services. Why don't we have dialysis services at Guam, which is a moneymaker for Guam Memorial Hospital, taken out?
Now we're talking about policy, Troy. We're back to policy, not finger pointing. So the bottom line is absolutely, why didn't that happen? I understand there are a couple of clinics within the hospital. I think a couple of doctors actually are operating a clinic in the hospital, but it's not an outpatient. It might be outpatient to them because they have their clinic in the hospital, but it's not an outpatient clinic for the hospital. I understand that the hospital does make some money off of that, but imagine how much more they could make if they would have completed that Z-Wing construction for outpatient care. Another thing I know about care at the hospital, and you'll probably know why, but I don't want to make my wife a target. But the truth is one of the reasons why GMH is also very expensive is because patients that go there, predominantly a lot of them that are self-pay, you have to get them to a higher level of non-acuity before you release them, because that they have financial problems. And the chances are they're probably not going to be able to afford to do follow-up care with their doctor. So a lot of times when they leave, they're going to be on their own. GMH even gives them as much medication as they can, because they know that some of them will not go get their medication because sometimes they can't afford it or whatever else, right? And so this was the whole reason for the outpatient clinic, was that you got to maintain that level of care when a person goes in and they go into ER and then they go to the ICU and then they step down to the tele and they're released. A lot of times if you were at a traditional hospital, they could probably release you when you were maybe 65, 70% good to go, because they know that you can immediately go to your clinic if you had a problem or whatever else. But if you're not of means, you may sit there and go, well, I guess I'm not feeling well again. I'm back to the ER, right? And that's what the outpatient clinic was supposed to do, was say, come back here before you become acute again and go into the ER and go through the system again. And also because these are the kind of things that the federal government funds because of the fact that there's a lot of accountability with outpatient continuum of care.
Senator, I'd like to have a whole separate conversation about that. I think we've exhausted our time here on Kandit, and I need to head out of the.
We definitely went in a lot of different areas, but Troy, I'd be happy to. I've been keen to these issues. It's one of the reasons why Senator Sabrina, and we got a little bit of a hit over the head on that too. Tried to make sure that we didn't tax Medicaid. and that was actually a benefit to the clinics. I don't know if Vince takes Medicaid, but maybe his clinic benefits from that. If when we pass the tax rebate for those that take Medicaid, it's trying to say, why do you tax that? You know what I mean? Try to increase that ability of access to care through that. So we've done a lot, Troy, and we're going to continue to do a lot.
Senator Duenas, thank you so much for joining us this morning. God bless you, sir.
Thank you for the platform. And, I appreciate the opportunity to get the truth out. And you'll see the truth tomorrow on display. I think we'll probably go quickly through this appropriation and get to the airport, which is really going to be where the rubber hits the road. Watch that to see where your money is going. And we'll continue to do the work of the people. Thank you, and God bless.
You guys should not give our money to the airport for a bailout. That's my personal opinion as a taxpayer. I don't want the airport getting a bailout. Not before,
we'll see what they have.
Not before they cut.
We'll see what they have to say, Troy. It'll actually end up being, and I wish childcare wasn't sandwiched in between here, but it's not our bill.
Yeah,
it's a bill from the front office.
Well, thank you, Senator. Thank you for your time. We'll be watching tomorrow.
Thanks. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
You asked, we delivered. Guam Auto Spot is extending our overstock sell-off with the hottest deals on island, like our 2025 GMC Canyon with $4,000 off. Or slide into a brand new Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross, starting at just $24,995. September is your chance to drive big and save even bigger. Visit us today or get pre-approved online at guamautospot.com or call 478-AUTO. Guam Auto Spot, where the savings never stop.
This stuff's hitting the spot.